The human, Marcus, stepped carefully onto the observation deck of the new interstellar research station. Light from the nearby star painted the walls in hues of gold and amber. It was quiet here, almost eerily so, except for the soft hum of machinery that ran through the station's metal spine. Marcus adjusted his toolkit, his eyes scanning the intricate panels before him. Everything had to be perfect. A simple mistake in this place could cost more than just equipment. Lives depended on the station functioning smoothly. Across the deck, the alien commander, Valera, watched him with an intensity that made him uneasy. Her species had no social filters. What others considered private, they considered open for observation and discussion. Marcus had learned to be careful, but sometimes even the most careful human could stumble. She had a tall, muscular frame, elegant and strong, with a striking presence that seemed to fill the room. Her features were alien but not frightening, just direct. Every gesture she made was deliberate and every look was studied. Valera stepped closer, her voice calm but commanding. "Human," she said, her tone carrying the weight of expectation. "Does the shape between my legs confuse you? Is that why you stare so oddly?" Marcus froze. The words were blunt, simple, and entirely unexpected. He glanced at her, feeling a rush of heat creep up his neck. In his training, he had been taught to maintain composure in the most difficult situations, but this was beyond any scenario he had ever imagined. The room seemed to shrink as several other species glanced their way, curiosity and amusement written across their faces. He took a breath. His mind raced, parsing the question logically rather than emotionally. This was not flirtation, nor a challenge. This was a genuine inquiry into human perception, a cultural observation from someone who had never known privacy. I am trained," Marcus said slowly, carefully choosing words, "to look away out of respect. I do not stare because it would be impolite. Not because I am confused." Valera tilted her head, analyzing him. Her eyes narrowed slightly, a gesture Marcus learned was their version of thoughtfulness. "Respect," she repeated, as if tasting the word. "You choose to control your gaze, even when instinct tells you to look." "Yes," Marcus replied, steadying himself. "Humans are trained to consider consequences before action. We choose restraint, even when instinct says otherwise." A ripple of whispers passed through the observation deck. Other species looked surprised. To them, instinct was dominance, it was power. To ignore it was weakness. Marcus could feel their gaze, their silent judgment, but he did not flinch. He had to make them understand that human strength was different. Valera's lips curved, not into a smile but into something that resembled curiosity mixed with approval. "Interesting," she said softly. "You suppress instinct by choice. You do not act on what you see, only what you decide. That is different." Marcus nodded. "It is how humans survive together. We are aware of ourselves and of others. Acting without choice can harm those around us." Other aliens exchanged glances. Some shook their heads in disbelief. How could a species survive without acting on instinct? Some of their kind had evolved to trust instincts entirely, believing that choice only slowed survival. Yet here was a human explaining that choice, even over instinct, was not weakness. It was strength. Valera's eyes studied him for a long moment. Then, without warning, she extended her hand toward a nearby panel. "Assist me in recalibrating this sensor," she commanded. "We will see if your human restraint is useful in practice." Marcus moved quickly, his hand steady, his mind focused. Together, they adjusted the delicate equipment. While other species watched from a distance, Marcus kept his composure, speaking only when necessary and letting his actions show competence. Valera observed every movement, noting the efficiency and calm with which he worked. Minutes passed. The sensor recalibration was complete, flawless. Valera straightened, looking at Marcus with what humans might call admiration. "You do not panic. You do not react hastily. You anticipate. This is why you do not fall prey to instinct alone. Marcus shrugged lightly, not used to receiving praise. It is necessary when working with others. Mistakes can be costly. Discipline ensures survival. Valera considered this. Discipline, she said, repeating the word as if savoring it. We have strength, speed, reflex. You humans have something else entirely. Control, awareness. That is rare. A soft alert sounded in the room, breaking the moment. Marcus turned to see a secondary system warning blinking. His training kicked in immediately. Valera, this panel is unstable. The energy readings are spiking beyond recommended levels. We need to stabilize it before it triggers the auxiliary alarms. Valera moved beside him without hesitation. Then act, human. Show me this control of yours in action. Marcus worked quickly, analyzing the panel, redirecting power flow and adjusting circuits. His hands moved with precision, guided by both instinct and deliberate thought. Valera watched, occasionally nodding, clearly impressed. Within moments, the readings normalized. She exhaled, a sound that conveyed both relief and respect. You see the danger and act without panic. You do not need fear to guide your choices. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. Fear can guide others, but it does not guide humans. We act deliberately, even under pressure. It is not instinct alone that keeps us alive, but our decision to act responsibly. The room was silent for a moment, filled only with the low hum of machinery. Then quietly Valera said, "Perhaps humans are dangerous in ways we do not yet understand." Marcus raised an eyebrow. Dangerous? Valera's gaze was steady. Yes, dangerous because you do not act on instinct alone. You think, you decide, you control. That is strength no other species possesses fully. It can be used to protect or to dominate, but it is rare indeed. The other species around the room were whispering now. Some seemed confused, others intrigued. Marcus felt the weight of their judgment, but also a strange sense of respect growing among them. He had not intended to impress, only to survive, to work with others, to demonstrate that humans were capable of discipline in the face of curiosity and misunderstanding. Valera stepped closer, her presence commanding yet calm. "I wish to study this further," she said. "You have shown restraint in a situation where others would falter. That is unusual for someone your size and species." Marcus nodded. "I hope that understanding humans helps your station. Cooperation is always more effective than chaos." Valera's eyes softened slightly, a gesture Marcus interpreted as acknowledgement. "Then we will observe each other. Perhaps humans and our species can learn from one another." Marcus allowed himself to relax, though his mind remained alert. He had survived the first encounter without offense, misunderstanding, or chaos. He had shown that humans were capable of a strength the aliens did not fully comprehend: discipline, choice, and awareness. And Valera, for all her bluntness and straightforwardness, had begun to see humans not as weak or strange, but as something entirely different. Something perhaps remarkable. The following day, Marcus arrived at the station's central hub earlier than usual. The other species were already busy at their consoles, monitoring sensor readings, analyzing cosmic data, and coordinating shipments from nearby colonies. Marcus's eyes, however, were on Valera. She had asked him to join her for a study of human restraint, and he had no idea what that would entail. Valera greeted him without ceremony. "You have proven control over instinct," she said, her tone sharp but not unkind. "But we need to see how you handle pressure among your own kind and among others who challenge your species' behavior." Marcus nodded. He had expected challenges. Humans were often underestimated in mixed-species environments. But he had not anticipated that the tests would involve both observation and subtle provocation. The first exercise was simple in concept, but complex in execution. The station's observation deck had been repurposed into a simulation arena. Different species, each with unique abilities and instincts, were placed around the perimeter. Marcus was given a task: navigate through the arena, repair a damaged energy conduit, and return without triggering any of the simulation's defensive responses. Other species whispered among themselves. They clearly did not expect humans to excel. One of Valera's subordinates, a tall, fur-covered alien named Coral, smirked. "He will panic. He will hesitate. Watch and see." Marcus did not react. He simply adjusted his tools and studied the arena. He noticed patterns in the defenses. The lasers pulsed in predictable sequences, the traps had delays, and the sensors were sensitive to sudden movements. He would not rely on speed. He would rely on observation, patience, and calculation. Valera watched intently. "Notice his approach," she said quietly to another officer. "He calculates. He does not react with fear. That is the difference." Marcus moved forward, slow and deliberate. When a laser beam pulsed across the floor, he paused and timed his step perfectly to avoid triggering it. When a trapdoor opened near him, he adjusted his balance and shifted weight smoothly. Each movement was controlled, precise, and intentional. The other species, whispers grew into audible murmurs. They had expected the human to falter, but he navigated the arena with calm focus, correcting small missteps without panic or hesitation. Marcus completed the conduit repair flawlessly and returned to the starting point without triggering a single defensive mechanism. Valera's eyes gleamed with approval. "He does not let fear or surprise dictate his actions," she said. "He is aware, deliberate, and controlled." "This is unusual," Coral's smirk faltered. "But it is only a simulation," he muttered. "Give him a real threat and he will fail." Valera did not respond. Instead, she arranged the next test. This time, the stakes were real. The station's outer energy shield had experienced a minor failure. A rogue meteor fragment was heading toward a nearby satellite that controlled communications for the station. The failure could disrupt power flow or communications. Marcus was tasked with leading the repair team. Other species, including Coral, were under his supervision. They approached the damaged shield with confidence, each expecting Marcus to freeze, panic, or argue. But Marcus moved with authority, calmly issuing instructions while simultaneously analyzing the shield's control panels. "Coral, reroute auxiliary power to Grid 3. Talia, monitor energy feedback. I will engage the repair module directly." The alien team looked surprised. The human was not just competent. He was decisive, calm, and respectful of their skills. They followed his directions, albeit hesitantly, adjusting power and repairing circuits according to his precise calculations. Valera observed from the control room. Humans do not rely solely on instinct. They anticipate, plan, and guide others without dominating them. That is remarkable. The repair proceeded without incident, and the shield stabilized just in time to divert the meteor fragment. The team exhaled collectively, some muttering praise for Marcus under their breath. He simply nodded, ensuring every circuit and connection was secure before turning to Valera. "You see," Marcus said quietly, "coordination and awareness are stronger than reflex alone. It is not speed or strength that saves us. It is understanding and choice." Valera studied him for a long moment. "Your species, it is different. Not weaker, not stronger, just something else entirely. You do not act on impulse, yet you act decisively when necessary." As the day continued, Marcus found himself participating in more exercises, each designed to test both human and alien instincts. Valera deliberately created situations that would provoke immediate reactions, yet Marcus maintained composure. When a mechanical arm suddenly swung near him, he did not flinch. He adjusted its trajectory with a quick calculation. When a holographic threat appeared, he analyzed its pattern rather than reacting blindly. Each success surprised the aliens, and gradually, whispers of respect spread throughout the station. Even Coral, once openly skeptical, began to nod silently whenever Marcus succeeded. At the end of the day, Valera finally spoke. "Human, your restraint is not weakness. It is rare strength. You do not dominate by instinct, yet you influence those around you by control and awareness. That is why your species survives where others might fail." Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "Control comes at a cost," he admitted. "It requires constant vigilance, constant awareness of oneself and others, but it ensures that we act responsibly. That is what keeps our species alive and what allows us to work with others without harm." Valera's gaze softened, a rare gesture for her species. "Then we must learn from each other. I will study your methods, observe your behavior, and understand how humans harness choice over instinct. Perhaps our species can benefit from this knowledge." Marcus nodded. "I hope so. Cooperation is more effective than conflict. Awareness and discipline allow species to work together, even when instincts might say otherwise." As the crew returned to their routines, Marcus felt a quiet satisfaction. He had not sought recognition, yet he had demonstrated something important. Humans were not defined by instinct. They were defined by choice. And that choice, calculated, deliberate, and disciplined, made humans remarkable, even among the galaxy's most powerful and unusual species. Valera lingered as the other crew members dispersed. "I underestimated humans," she admitted quietly. "I expected fear, hesitation, confusion, but you act with awareness. You act with intent. That is something no other species possesses fully." Marcus inclined his head. "It is something we must train for. We do not take instinct for granted. We use it, but only when it aligns with reason and responsibility." Valera studied him silently, then finally nodded. "Perhaps the galaxy needs more of your kind. Not for strength, not for reflex, but for understanding. That is dangerous in its own way." Marcus felt a strange pride. He had not expected recognition from an alien commander, yet he understood her meaning. Humans were dangerous not because they were violent or strong or fast. Humans were dangerous because they thought, they controlled, and they chose, even when it was easier to follow instinct. The day ended quietly, but Marcus knew this was only the beginning. Valera would continue to observe him, to test him, to challenge the human concept of restraint. And Marcus was ready, not because he sought glory, but because he knew the strength of choice, the power of discipline, and the importance of showing other species that humans were something entirely different. The station had settled into an uneasy calm. Marcus walked along the corridors, observing the various species working side by side. Some moved gracefully, others awkwardly, each accustomed to the station's unique environment. Yet, even in the routine of daily operations, he could sense the subtle shifts. Conversations hushed as he passed. Glances lingered longer than necessary. The human's presence now carried weight, not for physical strength, not for weaponry or skill, but for something more profound: restraint, awareness, and deliberate action. Valera approached him from the observation deck, her steps silent against the metal floor. "Human," she said, her voice calm, "we face a challenge, one that will test not just your skill but your philosophy." Marcus tilted his head, curious. "What kind of challenge?" "A rogue faction has intercepted our communications," she explained. "They intend to sabotage the station's outer grid. They are fast, aggressive, and rely entirely on instinct. They will act without consideration for the consequences. And they are coming." Marcus nodded. This was the true test, far beyond simulations or controlled exercises. Now his principles, the deliberate control, the careful awareness, would be put to the ultimate proof. The alarms blared moments later, casting red light across the deck. Crew members moved with practiced urgency, but chaos threatened to break the order. Marcus did not panic. He observed, analyzed, and began issuing clear instructions. "Secure all secondary conduits. Coral, Talia, redirect power to auxiliary grids. Valera, coordinate shields while I monitor the energy flux. The alien crew hesitated for a moment. Habitually, they would react instinctively, rushing to action and risking miscalculations. Marcus's calm presence, his measured words, guided them. Slowly, the team adjusted to his rhythm, following his direction with precision. Outside, the rogue faction approached. Their ships moved swiftly, firing energy pulses that tested the station's defenses. Marcus remained composed. "Do not react too quickly," he instructed. "Observe the patterns, predict their trajectory, then respond. Instinct alone will not save us." Valera watched him, her eyes narrowing in both curiosity and admiration. Humans had the capacity to control their reactions, even under extreme stress. Unlike other species, they did not rely on instinct alone. They evaluated, chose, and executed with purpose. Marcus guided the team as the first wave of attacks hit. He did not move with blind speed. He calculated. He anticipated. He gave instructions that countered the enemy's tactics without risking the station's integrity. Slowly, the rogue faction's advantage diminished. One alien crew member, previously skeptical, muttered under his breath, "How can a human remain so calm?" "Instinct would drive us to panic." Marcus heard it but did not respond. Panic had no place here. Only deliberate, careful action could save the station. The rogue ships attempted a surprise maneuver, approaching from an unexpected angle. Marcus's mind raced. He observed the trajectory, considered every possibility, and then acted. "Divert auxiliary shields to Sector 7. Coral, engage pulse countermeasures. Talia, monitor power distribution." Now, the team moved as one. Energy redirected, pulse countermeasures activated, and the rogue faction's attack was neutralized before it reached critical systems. Valera's eyes widened slightly. Humans did not just survive. They influenced outcomes through choice, not speed or strength. As the attackers retreated, Marcus assessed the damage. Minor systems required repair, but nothing catastrophic had occurred. The station remained intact. Valera approached him once more. "Your species, you are dangerous not because of strength or numbers, but because of control. You act deliberately, yet decisively. That is rare, even among the most advanced species." Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "It is not natural for humans to act this way. We must learn, train, and control ourselves constantly. It is difficult, but it ensures survival and cooperation." Valera nodded slowly. "We have strength, speed, and reflex, but without control, those gifts can lead to destruction. Humans, you have something we do not fully understand. That is why your presence changes the station." The crew began repairs on the minor damage. Marcus moved among them, guiding actions, ensuring coordination. Even those who had once doubted him now worked in sync, following his example. The ripple effect of one disciplined human had begun to alter the culture of the station. Later, in a quieter moment, Valera spoke privately. "I underestimated humans," she admitted. "I thought your species would falter when faced with instinct-driven chaos. Yet you are composed, aware, and decisive. You act with thought, not impulse. That is powerful." Marcus replied simply, "We survive by choice. Instinct can protect or destroy, but deliberate action protects both ourselves and others." Valera studied him. "Then your species does not act only for survival. You act for understanding, for cooperation, and for responsibility. That is extraordinary." The realization settled over the station gradually. Humans were not like other species. Their strength lay not in brute force, agility, or reflexes. Their strength lay in the mind and in discipline. The other species began to respect Marcus, not as a commander or a warrior, but as a symbol of what a species could achieve through self-awareness and choice. The following days brought more tests, more challenges, and even more opportunities for Marcus to demonstrate human discipline. Each time, He remained calm, precise, and aware. He guided others without dominating, led without intimidation, and influenced without aggression. Slowly, the station's culture began to shift. Species that had relied on instinct alone began to observe, calculate, and cooperate more. One afternoon, Valera approached Marcus in the observation deck. "I have observed your behavior for weeks now," she said. "You humans are difficult to categorize. You are neither weak nor aggressive, neither fast nor slow. You act deliberately, choosing your responses carefully. That is frightening to some and inspiring to others." Marcus looked out at the stars beyond the deck, considering his response. It is frightening only if species rely solely on instinct. It is inspiring if they realize choice and awareness can change outcomes. Humans survive because we choose responsibility over impulse. Valera nodded slowly. "And that is why you are different. You do not dominate by reflex. You dominate by understanding. That is dangerous in the best way." Marcus allowed a quiet smile. He had not sought to impress, to intimidate, or to prove superiority. He had only acted as humans do, deliberately, responsibly, and with awareness. And in doing so, he had shown an entire station, and perhaps an entire galaxy, that humans were a species unlike any other, dangerous not for their strength, but for their discipline, their choice, and their understanding. The station had survived, the rogue faction retreated, and Marcus stood as a quiet testament to the human way, controlled, deliberate, and always aware. And as Valera watched him, she realized something profound. Humanity's true strength was not in what they could see, or feel, or touch. Their true strength was in what they chose to do. In the coming months, Marcus would continue to teach, guide, and demonstrate human discipline. The station would face new challenges, but now other species had a model. A species that chose awareness over instinct, thought over reflex, and cooperation over chaos. Humans were no longer just survivors. They were leaders, examples, and symbols of a different kind of power. And for Marcus, the lesson was simple but eternal. Strength without awareness is empty, instinct without choice is dangerous, but discipline, understanding, and deliberate action, those are the things that make a species truly remarkable. Valera approached him one last time that day. "You have changed how we see humans," she said softly, "not because of what you can do, but because of how you act. That is something no one else can teach us." Marcus nodded. "Then perhaps we can learn from each other. That is how we survive together." And with that, the station continued its operations, safer and wiser, carrying with it the lesson of humanity. True power lies not in instinct, but in the choice to control it.